Do you know why your life is difficult? Why your life is a struggle? Why you're unhappy with your life? Why you might even say your life sucks? It's because of one simple thing, and I can fix it for you. I'm not just selling you something stupid here. This isn't clickbait. The real deal. Something that I discovered that I want to pass on to you. In fact, if there was one thing I'm going to leave this earth with, I hope it is this. And it's not something that I discovered on my own. It's something that mankind has known since the beginning of mankind. And it's simple, but difficult, but doable. And it is this. In every situation in life, you get to choose what you think about that situation. You get to choose how you frame that situation in your life and what becomes your reality, what your belief system is based off of the way that you think about situations in life. Let me dumb this down as simply as I possibly can, because that's how my brain works. In every situation, there is something good and there is something negative that you can focus on. Something good and something bad. If you're going to the grocery store, think about the last grocery trip you took, or when you went to the hardware store, or wherever it was. What was a good thing that took place at that store? You were able to afford what it is that you had. You had a good encounter with someone. The thing that you needed was actually there and you found it. You had a good parking spot. I mean, you name it, there's a good thing you can focus on. Now, what is the negative that you could focus on? It was hot. It was uncomfortable. My leg was hurting as I was walking through the store. Some person was in my way. The lines were too long. I mean, you name it, there's always something negative to focus on. Depending on what it is that you focus on in life will be the thing that you most easily see. It's a type of training process you have to go through. What is it that I choose to focus on? And then you start to train yourself on that. So if you've trained yourself on the negative, you're going to see that as naturally and as easily as breathing air. And that's why your life sucks. Because you look at everything that sucks, and that's become your reality. Now, the other side of this coin is dangerous as well. Because to just say that everything is good, to say that I'm only going to see the good in a situation and I'm going to ignore the bad that's there, well, that ain't going to work either. That is just as immature as the other perspective. That is just as childish as the other perspective. When I was about 20 years old, I went out to visit a friend of mine, and he had a 67 fastback Mustang. Now, that car is pretty well sought after and classic right now, but I want you to know that when I was 20, it wasn't nearly as classic of a car. But at any rate, we went driving, and he was not a mechanically minded individual. And as we were driving along in the beginning of our long road trip that we were going to take with no real plan and just going with whatever the flow was, it was going to be a great trip. I heard this clanking and clunking up front. And I asked him, I said, "Hey man, what's going on up front in your Mustang here? Something sounds really wrong." And he said, "I have no idea. I just turn up the radio and it goes away." Well, friend, it's not going away. And when we stopped to fill up for gas, I went up front and I popped the little hubcap off, and 3 of the 4 lug nuts fell out of that hubcap. There was one lug nut barely holding that wheel on. Turning up the radio wasn't going to make that problem go away, and we were about to find out what that problem was our next little bout down the interstate. Nope. You can't just look at the positive and ignore the negative. A healthy individual, a mature individual, realizes that there is good and bad in every situation. You can't ignore it. There are problems that need to be dealt with, things that need to be fixed, adjustments that need to be made. When we see the negative in life, it's okay to see that, to recognize that, to realize that it's there. Here's the trick. You put that in the category of something to work on or something to deal with, but you make a choice ahead of time to not let that thing trump all the good. So you focus on what might be good in a situation. The negative is easy. The negative will be there. The thing that needs to be fixed still needs to be fixed. But instead of dwelling on it, and that's the pull is to dwell on that negative. The pull is to accept that it's there. Don't ignore it. Don't push it away. Realize it's there and choose to say, in light of what's not right, in light of what's not good in this situation, let me look for the thing that is good in the situation. When you go to an event like what I do for Jeeping, you can go through all the expense, all of the effort, the trailering your vehicle, the prepping the vehicle ahead of time, the owning the vehicle and putting all of this time, sweat, and money into these vehicles. And then you come up and you go out on your very first trail and you snap an axle. I've done it. That's a catastrophic break. That's not just something that you're going to be able to fix. And you can stomp your feet and you can scream and you can yell and you can curse to the sky and you can blame it on God and you can blame it on the rocks and you can blame it on whoever, this or that, and be a horrible, miserable person. And to have a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad life. And it won't be true. I mean, it's going to be true for you. That's your reality. But what you're going to miss are some important things. You're going to miss the people around you that are helping you in that moment. The guys who have set aside their wheeling time, their time of bouncing around on the rocks, to tie up your vehicle onto theirs and to drag you out of the canyon that your Jeep broke in. Or the 3 or 4 guys that all grab tools out of their truck and run over and start wrenching and working on and trying to help you fix the broken part that you have, to limp you out. The MacGyvering that takes place and the wonder of all of these brains coming together. And to see these guys who never even knew each other coming together to solve a problem for you. You're going to miss the best part of the trip, which had nothing to do with bouncing on the rocks. I look at it this way. There's a lot of people who hold on to and collect mementos of their life. It could be a trophy in a trophy case, showing that they got first place, second place, third place. Some people even collect participation trophies. That's going to be a whole nother episode. That's not this one. They have plaques on the wall that say that they achieved this thing or that thing. They have pieces of paper that they frame that are diplomas and degrees and things that they have achieved. As if those things have any value. Do you know what those things point to? They might point to your hard work. They might point to something that you struggled with for a long period of time, and it is the evidence that you accomplished whatever that was. But nobody, and I mean nobody, looks back on the things in life and don't include people in it. When people talk about their college days, they don't say, man, remember back to that trigonometry class we took? Man, those trigonometry equations, those were amazing. No, they say, remember back when we were in the dorms, we threw that smoke bomb in that toilet? And we didn't realize that that smoke bomb was going to go off in a way that cracked that toilet and flooded the third floor and then the second floor and the first floor. Those were the best of moments. Life is filled with relationships and people that we do things with. Our lives are wrapped up in the good moments that we see in the worst of moments. It's choosing to see what's good in the midst of what's not so good. Think of the things that you laugh about, the memories that you have that you tell stories about. If you're sitting around a campfire and you're sharing stories, what you're sharing is you're sharing things that went bad and what was funny about them. What didn't go right and the irony that was in that. The way someone did something and stood their ground and then were forced to have to see something different. When all you do in life is focus on the negative and the hardship and the difficulty, you are missing out on the best parts of life. Life is filled with great moments in the worst of moments. And I want you to see that it is possible to choose to literally just make a choice to see something different. The next time you have a hardship, the next time you have a difficulty in life, acknowledge it, see it, realize it. But then choose to find something in that situation that's worth being something to focus on positively. Something that isn't fake, but something that is real. Something that is better than the thing that is negative. I can think of so many hardships in my life that I wasted by just focusing on the tragedy, the difficulty, and the struggle. And the more I focused on it, the worse I felt. The more I focused on the negativity, the more negative things I saw. The more that I focused on the negativity, the more miserable I was to be with. The less I wanted to be relational to anybody because I was hurting, I was suffering, I was struggling. You know that people have been in the most horrific of situations and yet found goodness in them? You read stories of horrific moments in life where people are imprisoned and tortured and yet found value and goodness in those situations. Not in being tortured, not in being imprisoned, but in noticing a sunrise and the beautiful colors across the sky. Choosing to focus on the good that they had available to them. It wasn't fake. It doesn't erase the negativity. It doesn't make the negative thing not there. The negative thing is there. It has to be dealt with. It's going to be experienced. But even in that negative experience, you still find something good. You don't want to go to the doctor and get the shot. Nobody wants to get a shot, but getting the shot has a benefit, and you focus on that. Everything in life, I don't care what it is, has something negative you can focus on and something positive that you can focus on. The example I always give, the one that I find the funniest, is Disneyland. Because you can go to Disneyland, which is the happiest place on earth, at least that's what the banner says over the top of the place. And inside the happiest place on earth, you can find the most miserable people. But here's the irony, is that a child can for weeks or even months be excited about their trip to Disneyland. They could talk about it. They get the Disney t-shirt ahead of time. They make the big travel and they get in the hotel and they finally walk through those turnstiles and there in front of them is everything created so that you will be happy. Everything that you could possibly need is at your fingertips with your credit card. And there can be a child in the middle of Disneyland having a epic meltdown because their ice cream fell off their cone. Because something happened that didn't meet their expectation, that didn't happen the way it was supposed to. And you want to shake them and say, don't you remember you're in the happiest place on earth? They have chosen in the place where you should only be able to find happiness. They've chosen to find something that didn't go right and make the entire experience about that. It's a colossal waste of opportunity. Every situation in your life, every situation in mine has an opportunity for us to look at the positive or the negative. I think in my own life, the things that matter the most are the people that I'm doing life with. I have toys, I have experiences, I have things that I enjoy to do by myself. There's things that just, I'm wired a certain way. But the thing in life, the thing that I find joy in, the thing that I find makes my life worth living is in the moments of struggle and in the moments of difficulty, choosing those spots to find something positive to focus on. I know the difficulty is there. I'm not ignoring it. I'm going to deal with it. I have to deal with it. But I also can choose to be positive. I can also choose to find happiness. I can choose to make relationships and other people important and significant to me as well. These are the things that I find value in. These are the things that help me find happiness. So if your life is miserable, if your life sucks, if your life is not worth living, that is your choice. You get to choose. And I am begging you, give it a shot. Choose to find something good in the worst of situations, in the most difficult moments in life. I want to tell you about a situation that I want to end this episode with this. I do funerals for people who don't have a pastor to help them in those most difficult moments of life. And I find a lot of value in that. And one day I got a call from the funeral home, said they had a really difficult case and was wondering if I would be willing to do the funeral. And I said, of course I would. They said there was this 20-year-old young man, who was planning a funeral for his mother, who was murdered by his father. And his father was, of course, in jail. I was shocked. What a horrible situation. I knew that this boy would be devastated. And when he would have to be planning his mother's funeral, all the steps and details, just the annoyance of the whole thing, the challenges that fall into that, and having to plan a funeral for your mother is one thing, but knowing that your mother was murdered by your father, and now your father, the amount of misery in that situation is probably more than most people could bear. And so I sat down with this young man. And as we talked, he said to me, so much good has been happening in all of this. I couldn't believe my ears. And I wanted to probe that just a little bit because I wanted to make sure that what I was hearing, and that this wasn't something delusional on his part. And he said the amount of people that have reached out to me, the amount of people that have offered to help, the amount of people that have shown their love and support, he says, have been so helpful in this situation. And I said, yeah, but you also are going through difficulty, as if I was trying to pull him back into his misery. And he said, this is the hardest thing I've ever had to experience. But he said, if I focus on that, I'm going to destroy myself. He said, I have to focus on the good things that are happening in this. And I thought, oh my goodness, this 20-year-old kid knows something that I've been struggling with my whole life with. The thing I'm trying to show you in this episode. And it was the thing that pulled him through the worst moment of his life. Sure, he's going to look back on this. It always was difficult. It always was tragedy in this. But he's also going to look back on this, and it's not going to destroy him. He's going to see the good that happened as well. That's what it is. If your life is miserable, if your life is no good, that's your choice. You have chosen to make your life that way because you focused on the negative. It's a balance of both. Realizing there's struggle and realizing that there's goodness as well. Friends, you get to choose. Grace with grit. I'll see you on the next one.